I'm Rob McIntosh, one of the theater teachers here at Repertory Company High School for Theater Arts, and I am very, very pleased to welcome you to our advanced acting class production of Sense and Sensibility. What I want to say about this production is that it is not at all what we expected it to be. A year ago, when we cast this play, we were certain that we would be back in person to perform it live for a live audience. Obviously, that is not what happened. In fact, when we came back, our first several weeks of rehearsal were entirely through Zoom. Never had the cast together. We just met online to rehearse each of the scenes. And then when we were able to come back in person, still several members of our cast remained at home. In fact, one of our cast members recorded every single scene from North Carolina. And those of us who came into the space had to deal with the additional challenges of how do you record a scene with another actor when you cannot be in proximity to each other, both of you taking off your mask at the same time. So we set up green screens throughout the space, had students working in the costume closet and set up behind the booth and in the other room so that they could play scenes together even though they had to be apart. So it was extraordinarily challenging. It has been quite a ride, but I am really, really proud of the work that this cast has done. They've been incredibly professional and diligent and put in so many more hours than the 1 hour a week that was allotted for this class. It's extraordinary work under extraordinary circumstances, and I think you're really going to enjoy the show. It is a 2-act play, a full-length play with an intermission. So pop some popcorn, put your feet up, and enjoy the advanced acting class production of Sense and Sensibility.
Did I tell you? I saw Lady Fag and all 5 of her daughters last week.
The Miss Dashwoods are highly thought of throughout all the county, I think.
Dead of a fright, they say. I suppose he happened to be looking at it
this county. Now, Dorsetshire has true beauty. I met Lady Honeywood there, you know.
Miss Langley's like any other short girl with a broad nose and wide mouth, fashionable dress and exposed bosom. Miss Blount is much in style with her long face, diamond bandeau, white shoes, pink husband, and
Poor Mr. Dashwood, carried away so suddenly, woke one morning with a fever and drew his last gasp within the week. Poor Mr. Dashwood.
But a very handsome funeral. The serenity of the corpse was most delightful. Poor Mr. Dashwood.
And poor Mrs. Dashwood in every sense of the word. You know that his widows and daughters are left with almost nothing.
No.
Not truly?
But Norland Park is such a large estate.
Were there very many debts in the family?
No, nothing like that. It was a question of the law.
Did somebody break the law?
Shh. No, Mr. Dashwood could not legally bequeath it to the ladies. It all went to his son from the previous marriage, Mr. John Dashwood.
I think that I will give them £1,000 apiece to start their new life.
Wasn't he a rich man already?
Oh yes, he married into money, but his rich wife, not a sympathetic creature, moved into Norland Park the day after the funeral, without a word of notice to the new widow.
My dear John, how can you think of taking £4,000 from the fortune of our dear little boy? What possible claim can the Miss Dashwoods, who are only related to you by half blood, have to such a large amount?
My father's last request was that I provide for them, Fanny.
Your father did not know what he was talking of, I dare say. 10 to 1, he was lightheaded at the time. £4,000.
He did not specify any particular amount. Perhaps if the sum were diminished by 1/2, £500 apiece would be a great increase to their fortune.
£2,000. What brother on earth would do so much even for his real sisters?
One had rather do too much than too little. Do you think they may expect more?
Who knows what they might expect?
£2,000 all at once might overwhelm them and be spent unwisely, I suppose. Perhaps a yearly sum instead.
People always live forever when there is an annuity to be paid them. To be very honest, my love, I'm convinced that your father had no idea of you giving them any money. I wager when he told you to provide for them, he meant to help them move their things and send them occasional presents of fish and game and so forth. My darling, may I risk being perfectly frank?
Always, my angel.
The painful truth is that even on his deathbed, your father was not thinking of us, nor of our little Harry. He only thought of them, so you owe no particular attention to his wishes, for given his way, he would have left them everything in the world. Remember, my dear, he left them all the best china.
The china is a material consideration. It is absolutely unnecessary to do more, I think, than to help them move comfortably. How liberal and handsome you are, my lamb.
And so the young ladies are left in such reduced circumstances. How shall the girls ever catch a man?
As to that, I understand Mrs. John Dashwood's brother, Mr. Edward Ferrars, is to stay with his sister at Norland for a time. He is a bachelor.
And Stanton earned a large fortune from his mother.
If one of the Dashwoods can make a catch of him.
Mr. Ferrars. Miss Dashwood, I beg pardon me, I did not intend to intrude.
Oh no, you weren't intruding. Are you?
Yes, I am. Writing, a letter. Yes. Oh, are you? I see. Are you as well?
Yes. Writing. Yes. Mr. Ferrars, pray do not leave on my account. That is, the light is very good here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Miss Dashwood, I realize I have not yet had the proper occasion to express to you personally my very sincere condolences on the loss of your father.
Yes, thank you.
Miss Dashwood, I hope that my presence here has not caused any additional distress in this sad time. My sister, I confess that I have not been informed of all the particulars before my visit.
You needn't apologize, Mr. Ferrars. My mother said only yesterday how your presence at Norland has been a comfort. And I'm very grateful for anything that raises her spirits.
I'm pleased that your mother is pleased. That is, might I inquire after Mrs. Dashwood?
It's far too early to think of any moderation in grief. My father's death is very difficult.
I'm sure that you must be a great comfort to her.
I attempt to be. I'm writing to our cousin, Sir John Middleton. He may have a cottage available for us in Devonshire. The rent is uncommonly moderate.
I'm sure that it must be a rather difficult to leave your home.
Yes. We were We have been very happy here. I must not smudge this.
Oh, Miss Dashwood, please forgive me.
No, no.
I did not mean to upset you.
No, it's. Oh, Mr. Ferrars, I cannot use this.
Miss Dashwood, I beg your
No,
pardon.
no, no. I beg your pardon.
This is inexcusable. I'm so sorry, Fanny. Miss Dashwood was
Edward, there's ink on your face.
Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with a pale cast of thought,
with spirit, Edward,
and enterprises of great pith and moment.
Edward, please. Hamlet is not making polite conversation. In this speech, he is all of mankind, all of humankind, railing against the forces that would keep us tame, that prevent us from acting upon our soul's truest impulses. It is a desperate cry against the futility of life less than entirely lived. You must be driven, almost mad by passion, by rage, by love for the frail beauty of life itself.
With this regard, their currents turn away.
Edward, Shakespeare writes in a rhythm. Which matches precisely the beats of the human heart. If your heart also beats, which I presume it does.
Yes.
Then you cannot help but feel the impossible depth of all of Hamlet's text. And thus, the native hue of resolution is sickled o'er with the pale cast of thought.
With this regard, their currents turn away and lose the name of action.
Soft you now, the fair Ophelia.
Marianne.
Soft you now, the fair Ophelia.
Nymph and thy orison.
Nymph and thy orisons, be all my sins remembered.
Oh, Edward.
I'm sorry.
A noble effort. Why would you give him Hamlet to begin with, Marianne?
Nay, Mama, if one is not to be animated by Hamlet. But I suppose we must allow for differences of taste.
In truth, you have done me a service. I may now tell my mother, in all seriousness, that I have no talent for public speaking.
Will she take such a defeat willingly, Edward? Your sister is always telling us you are destined to be a very great orator.
Now, my life's work seems to be to convince both Fanny and my mother that I am unsuited for public scrutiny.
Then how is your fame to be established? For famous, you must be to satisfy them.
Oh, I cannot be forced into greatness. Thank heaven.
And do you have no ambition?
My ambition is to be happy. But, I mean, I'm afraid I must make that in my own way. I mean, wealth and fame would not make me so.
Strange that it would. What has wealth or fame to do with being happy?
Wealth has much to do with it.
Eleanor, for shame.
Money determines more than you might wish, Marianne.
Edward, you promised me you would show me fancy new puppies before dinner.
I did. Shall we make a party of that?
I have seen them already.
It must be a quick visit, Margaret. Please do wear your boots. It's raining.
I don't know where they are.
It's scarcely raining.
Let us ask Betsy if they've been laid aside.
What a pity it is, Eleanor, that Edward reads so spiritlessly.
Marianne, you've been hectoring him all afternoon, and you've only made him more self-conscious. If you would leave him alone for a moment, I'm sure he would read very well indeed.
I was only trying to help.
Mm.
Eleanor, are you truly offended?
Do you really think him spiritless?
I have the highest opinion possible of Edward. I assure you. I think him everything in a world that is worthy and amiable.
Must you always speak so warmly?
Don't you agree?
I think that Edward is very sensible. His mind is excellent, and if he not always a brilliant orator, it is only shyness that impedes him.
Indeed.
He may sometimes appear awkward, but I believe that's only because he strives so earnestly to never hurt a living creature by careless thought or action.
Yes.
I grant you, perhaps he's not fashionable.
No.
Perhaps he's not even widely considered handsome, but once you notice his eyes, which are uncommonly good, and the general sweetness of his expression, I think he's very handsome indeed. But what say you, Marianne?
I swear that when you tell me to love him as a brother, I shall think him perfect indeed.
Marianne, I don't deny that I think very highly of Edward, that I greatly esteem him, that I like him.
Esteem him? Like him? Cold-hearted Eleanor.
Excuse me for speaking in so quiet a way of my feelings. Believe them to be stronger than I've declared, but I'm not sure that Edward feels anything for me beyond friendship.
Eleanor.
He may have a kind of preference.
Aha!
But there are other points to be considered, Marianne. He's dependent on his mother for a living and must obey her wishes in all things. Edward would face many obstacles if he wished to marry a woman with no fortune.
Miss Dashwood, dinner is served.
You must not be diffident, Eleanor. Edward is obviously desperately in love with you, and no material obstacle can stand in the way of love for long. That means it is only a matter of time before he binds his soul to yours forever.
Where do you pick up these phrases? Stop, you goose! Stop! Let's go for dinner!
There was a brown one and a white one, and one that was almost completely white, but with brown spots on his ear. They were all so sweet. Mama, do you think I could have one as my pet? She could sleep in the barn.
We shall see, my dear. I do not know how much room we shall have in the new house.
How fortunate, ma'am, that you were able to find lodging so soon. We're very sorry to lose you, of course.
When exactly are you planning to move?
I might have immediate possession of the cottage, but I imagine it will be some months before we put all the particulars to rights.
I do not think it right that you are moving so far away.
Not too far to visit, Fanny. You and John will always be welcome, and Edward, I hope you will also come and stay with us very soon.
Yeah, I will certainly. I will certainly visit soon.
But not too soon, Edward. We would not want you to cut short your visit here. And then you have so many other obligations. You know, Maman expects you next month when Miss Morton is visiting.
I'm not even acquainted with Miss Morton, Fanny. I'm sure that I can manage both.
Edward, do not make promises that you cannot keep. My brother, you know, is soft-hearted and always wishes to please everybody at every time, but we must not allow him to become too distracted. We have such great expectations for him. There is truly no limit to what he may accomplish, whether in the army, the military, or the government.
Hear, hear.
You know, it is quite burdensome to have such very, very high potential as our Edward does. And I confess, it does make me fear for him.
What do you mean, my love?
Why, my poor brother is a fox, and hallooing all around him are hunters and hounds. Ow! Ow!
A fox, Fanny?
Oh, I am sorry. Am I being very abstract? He is a target, my love. He is prey. Opportunists are always circling, eager to pounce. An eligible man of my brother's station will always attract, for example, upwardly minded young ladies. There is no predator so fierce, no creature so shameless as an unmarried woman in the desperate pursuit of a wealthy man. It is a sad reflection of our libertine age, but I assure you that such fortune hunters are all too common. And I do use that term broadly.
Fanny,
What? I am merely making conversation.
I misspoke earlier. We shall remove ourselves from this house within a week, no matter the expense. I've lost my appetite. Girls, come.
Oh, oh.
Miss Dashwood, I just wanted to say very safe travels to your new home.
It's so small.
Margaret.
We'll fit all of us comfortably, and Thomas and Betsy. We really are very fortunate, dear.
Where shall I put my telescope?
Next to my pianoforte. You may spy on the neighbors.
Marianne.
You may not spy on the neighbors.
It is rather small, but I'm sure we will soon have plenty of money, and then we may think about building.
Hello, hello!
Hello, hello!
Miss Dashwood, welcome, welcome. May I present my mother-in-law, Mrs. Jennings.
Hello, how do you do? Always so thrilling to meet a relation. Excuse these noisy devils, they get overexcited. Hush!
Sir John, my daughters, Eleanor, Marianne, and Margaret.
Have you ever seen prettier girls in all the world? Hush, hush, you.
I'm sure they have left many broken young gentlemen in Devonshire. Hush!
You must, of course, dine at Barton Park every day until you are settled. Hush!
Come, you must come.
Come, come, you must come.
You shall not leave until you agree to come. Hush!
We shall wait on you for dinner if it is no inconvenience.
Lady Middleton will be so pleased. We expect you tonight. The prettiest girls in all England. Hush!
Hush!
I must apologize to you, Miss Eleanor and Miss Marianne. I was unable to get any young eligible bachelors here tonight. Only our particular friend, Colonel Brandon. But he is neither young nor very gay, I'm afraid. But Brandon, old boy, come and feast your eyes upon Miss Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood. Brandon? Aren't they just the most charming girls in all of England? To dinner, to dinner. I only hope you will not find it so very dull.
Miss Margaret, surely you can tell us the name of the young gentleman who is Miss Eleanor's particular favorite in Sussex.
I must not tell, may I, Eleanor?
Margaret, remember that whatever conjectures you may have, you have no right to repeat them.
I never had any conjectures about it. It was you who told me of it yourself. Ow!
Pray, Miss Margaret, let us know all about it. What is the gentleman's name?
I mustn't tell, ma'am, but I know very well what it is and where he is as well.
We can guess where he is. In Norland, to be sure. He is the curate of the parish, I dare say.
He is of no profession at all.
Margaret, you know that this is all your own invention, and there is no such person in existence.
Well then, He is lately dead, Marianne, for I am sure there was once a man and his name began with an F?
F. Hey, F. F.
It has rained very hard recently. It has rained every day for the last fortnight, I believe. Do you find the weather particularly inclement, ma'am?
Rain. Shocking. Rain.
Yes, it has been a very wet spring.
Margaret, please be so good as to join me at the piano fort.
Why? Ow.
Oh, Miss Marianne, do you play?
Please do excuse my sister's enthusiasm.
No, pound away by all means.
Yes, we are all prepared to be charmed.
Very fond of music.
Oh, Colonel Brandon is very much in love with Miss Marianne Dashwood. I rather suspected it to be so, from the first evening they met when he listened while she sang, and the second evening when he listened while she sang again. It is an excellent match, for he is rich and she is handsome. I'm sure he need not wait any longer.
Colonel Brandon is a very eligible bachelor.
A bit long in the tooth. Why, my Cassandra set her cap at him, and that was 10 years ago.
Ooh, that big property he inherited. I cannot think of it, but I am breathless.
Such a sober man. A young woman's touch would liven him up.
A young, pretty woman. Either breathe life into him or kill him within a fortnight.
A match, a perfect match. I will find a good husband for every decent girl in the country. Mark my words.
Colonel Brandon is nearly old enough to be my father. And if he was ever animated enough to be in love, has long outlived the sensation. What is a man to be safe from such wit if age and infirmity do not protect him?
Infirmity? Do you call Colonel Brandon infirm?
Yesterday, he spoke of his flannel waistcoat.
And?
A flannel waistcoat for his aching joints, the commonest signifier of declining life.
My dearest child, if you estimate the colonel thus, I imagine you must be in continual terror of my decay. It must seem to you a miracle that I still live.
Mama, you're not doing me justice. I know that Colonel Brandon is not in any danger of immediate expiration. He may live 20 years longer, but a man of his age should have nothing to do with matrimony.
Perhaps a man of his age and a lady of your age should not have anything to do with matrimony together, but if there were a woman who was single at 30, I do not think anyone would object to the colonel marrying her.
A woman of 30 can never hope to feel or inspire affection again. If her fortune is small, I suppose that she might bring herself to be a nurse for the security of being a wife.
Must you doom Colonel Brandon to a slow decline because he happened to complain of an ache in his shoulder? If he had a violent fever, you would not despise him half so much. Confess, Marianne, is it not there something thrilling to you about the flushed cheek and hollow eye and quick pulse of a fever?
Ma'am, Lord Middleton is here to ask if you have any letters to post.
Hello!
I will take them.
Margaret, will you go and get your boots on?
We are not still going for a walk, are we? It is going to rain.
No, it is not. Now go and get your boots, please.
Oh, boots, 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 boots.
Mama, I have had an alarm on the subject of sickness, which I must share with you. I am sure that Edward Ferrars is not well.
Oh?
We have been here almost a fortnight, and he has not yet come. What else but grave illness could be keeping him away?
Does Eleanor expect him?
She must.
She has said nothing to me.
It is all so strange. Do you know I purposely left them alone together twice on our last morning at Norland? And each time he most unaccountably followed me out of the room.
What?
Are you still walking? It looks as though it's going to rain.
Marianne.
All this talk of wet spring, it is not going to rain. The day will be everlasting fair. Now come along.
Very wet spring. We should tell Betsy to put tea on. They'll be soaked through.
Eleanor, Mama, Marianne fell on her ankle and a gentleman picked her right up.
Margaret, what on earth?
Preserver, Marianne's preserver.
Please forgive my intrusion, ma'am. The lady took a tumble and was not able to stand.
Margaret, run and tell Betsy what has happened. Marianne, dearest, are you in much pain?
Only a wretched ankle, I think.
And thank heavens you were there. Please, sir, will you sit and take some tea?
I am dirty and wet and do not want to spoil your furniture.
Might I ask to whom we are so obliged?
My name is John Willoughby. I hope, ma'am, you will allow me the honor of calling tomorrow to inquire after Miss...
Dashwood, it is our name. I am Mrs. Dashwood. This is Eleanor, Margaret, and...
Miss Marianne Dashwood.
You will be very welcome, Mr. Willoughby. Will you not wait for the rain to clear?
Thank you, ma'am, but my pointers are outside. A little more water will not melt me. Until tomorrow.
Marianne's gallant preserver. And then Mama asked him if he would sit down, but he would not as he was so muddy and dirty. But he is to call again today.
Do you know any gentleman by the name Willoughby?
Willoughby? What is he, in the county? He's down here every spring. I must ask him to dinner on Thursday.
And what sort of young man is he?
As good a fellow as ever lived, not a bolder rider in England.
And where is his residence?
Mr. Willoughby has no property of his own in this county. He resides only while visiting his rich old cousin, Mrs. Smith in Allenham Court. He is to inherit the estate and all her fortune eventually.
Oh.
He is very well worth catching, Miss Dashwood. And if I were you, I would not give him up so easily to my younger sister. Miss Marianne must not expect to have all the men to herself. Brandon will be jealous if she does not take care.
My daughters, Sir John, have not been brought up to catch gentlemen. I'm glad to hear, however, that he is a respectable young man.
Of course he's respectable, Mama.
Hey, I see how it is. You will be setting your cap at him now and never think of poor Brandon. How can he compete against all this tumbling about and spraining of ankles?
Cowper?
Yes, I dare say that Scott or Pope is a more serious-minded answer, but I'm afraid that Cowper is my favorite poet of our time.
Cowper may indeed be the greatest poet of any time. Pray, what's your favorite poem, Mr. Willoughby? Mine must be Hope.
I think they're mine.
Oh, see me sworn to serve thee and command a painter's skill into a poet's hand.
That while I trembling trace a work divine, fancy may stand aloof from the design,
and light and shade in every stroke be thine.
Mr. Willoughby, won't you join us for dinner?
I beg your pardon, ma'am, but I must dine with my cousin at Allenham. I had no idea it was so late. Might I inquire after Miss Marianne again tomorrow?
By all means.
Until tomorrow.
Well, Marianne, nobody can ever accuse you of being too reserved.
You are right, Eleanor. I have been too much at ease, too happy, too frank. I have been open and sincere when I ought to have been spiritless and dull. I suppose you think I should have talked solely of the weather and roads and only spoken once every 10 minutes. Or better yet, never spoken at all.
My love, she's only teasing you. Eleanor, surely we would never wish to check Marianne's conversations with her new friend.
A love match indeed.
I hear that Mr. Willoughby visits the Dashwoods every day, scooping her up in the driving rain.
Add a horde of gypsies and you'd have a penny novel.
Married within a month. Mark my words.
He has no money to marry. Depends entirely on that aunt of his.
When he inherits from her, he'll be wealthy indeed, wealthy and handsome. What more could one wish? Look at them. No eyes for anyone else in the world.
This is indeed the season of my happiness.
But what of poor Colonel Brandon?
Colonel Brandon? Colonel Brandon and his wet spring.
Colonel Brandon is the kind of man everybody speaks well of and who nobody cares about.
Why do you dislike him?
Why should you like him?
He's very civil. He's seen a great deal of the world and always answers my inquiries with good breeding and good nature.
That is to say, he has told you that in the East Indies the climate is hot and the mosquitoes are troublesome.
You are both unfair to him, and it is not witty in either of you.
Oh, in defense of your protege, Miss Dashwood, you can even be saucy.
My protege, as you call him, is a sensible man, and sense will always have attractions for me. Yes, Marianne, even a man over 40.
Oh, he is very respectable as a statue or a monument. Our terribly stiff, perfectly inhuman colonel. I'm amazed he can still bend at the waist.
Well, I have always found him to be a perfect gentleman.
But not me?
Eleanor.
No. I fear she is only too right. Miss Dashwood, forgive me. In utter self-reproach, I cast myself at your feet to once again bask in the light of your sweet approbation. I surrender my case entirely. I, John Willoughby, confess that Colonel Brandon's character is completely and entirely irreproachable. And yet somehow I dislike him as much as ever. Speak of the devil.
Oh, we are never safe from
You have poor timing, Brandon. I was just about to take Miss Marianne to look at the greenhouse. There are some very interesting orchids there.
Orchids, yes, we must go look at the orchids. I so adore an orchid. Please do excuse us, Colonel.
Your sister is full of life.
She is certainly energetic. Someday her disposition will settle, I hope.
I'm sorry to think of her ever changing.
I cannot agree with you there. Marianne's ideals are all very romantic, but they tend to discard propriety entirely. She would benefit from a more mature understanding of certain realities.
Do not desire it too much. I once knew a lady who resembled your sister, and her introduction to what you might call realities was very unfortunate. I will not burden you with the story. Pardon me, have you dropped this?
Oh, yes.
Shall I have it laundered?
Oh, no, thank you.
But you see, it is covered in ink.
Colonel Brandon, please excuse me. May I steal my sister's attention for a moment? Eleanor, I have the most wonderful news. Willoughby has given me a horse.
A horse?
One which is exactly bred to carry a woman. He is sending his groom for it immediately.
Marianne, you cannot accept such a present.
Why not? Eleanor, we shall share its use.
A horse from a strange man.
What strange man? We are speaking of Willoughby.
And he is very little known to you.
I may have not have been acquainted with Willoughby for long, Eleanor, but I know him much better than I know any other creature in the world. Except you and Mama, of course.
Marianne, let us not touch upon the impropriety for a moment. We cannot afford to keep a horse.
Surely we can find the money.
We have enough to just keep ourselves respectable.
There must be some way.
We must go for dinner.
Mr. Willoughby, I must speak to you about your kind offer.
But Marianne, Queen Mab is still yours, Marianne. I shall only keep her till you can claim her for your more lasting home.
The pointer again. The pointer. He flushes out anything that breathes.
Turn your beauty into
Once he was chasing, mouth like a flash with some bird.
The house may not
We
be
all were sure
female.
it was away
I find
from
her
Mr.
spirit
Shot. What is the matter with Brandon?
You left my dinner table.
No bad news, Colonel, I hope.
None at all, ma'am.
But what was that letter?
Merely a letter of business.
Then how did it discompose you so much? Come, let us hear the truth of it. Oh, I know who it is from, and I hope she is well.
Whom do you mean, ma'am?
Oh, you know who.
I'm very sorry, ma'am, that I received this tonight. I am afraid that it requires my immediate attendance in town.
What can you have to do in town this time?
I do not mean to break up the party, but I'm afraid that I must depart this moment.
Tonight, absurd. Go tomorrow instead.
I regret that I cannot.
There are some people who cannot bear a party of pleasure. I would lay 50 guineas that Brandon invented this trick to get out of our gathering.
I have no doubt of it.
This is all very unorthodox.
Well, when will you come back again?
Dare not say.
You'd better change your mind.
It is not in my power. Might I see you and your sisters in London this winter, Miss Dashwood?
I'm afraid not.
Farewell for a longer time than I should wish, Miss Marianne.
Colonel, before you go, do let us know what you are going about.
Good evening, ma'am.
How provoking.
I can guess what his business is. It's about Miss Williams, I am sure.
And who is Miss Williams?
She is a relation of the Colonel's, my dear. A very near relation. I will not say how near for fear of shocking you. She is his natural daughter.
Indeed.
And as like him as she can stare. It was the great scandal of the county 15 odd years ago. The mother died, I understand, although we never could get all of the details. He is very fond of the little love child. I dare say he will leave her all of his fortune.
A love child from old prim and proper Brandon? What a first-rate hypocrite.
Oh, hush. Did Brandon give you any further intelligence?
No, I suppose it must be something he is ashamed of. Well, despite our reduced numbers, we must make ourselves merry. What do you all say to a ramble about the country?
Ask Mr. Willoughby and Miss Marianne about drives in the country.
Ma'am?
I have found you out in spite of all your tricks. This morning when we all went driving and you two sped away out of sight, I made my woman inquire of your groom, sir, and I know where you spent the morning.
Yes, out in my carriage.
Yes, Mr. Impudence. And I found out where you went in that carriage. I hope you like your future house, Miss Marianne. I look forward to visiting you in Allenham.
A good trick on us, Willoughby. Do you still have that fine mare?
Marianne, did you really visit Allenham with Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
with no companion other than Mr. Willoughby.
We did not do anything wrong, Eleanor. Mr. Willoughby has a perfect right to show that estate. It will all belong to him one day.
Even if Allenham was one day to belong to you, Marianne, you would not be justified in what you have done.
Eleanor!
Why didn't you tell me?
Why don't you talk to me about Edward?
There's nothing to tell.
Well, the same is true for me. There was nothing to really tell, Eleanor. We took a little stroll. Perhaps it was rather ill-judged in me to go without a chaperone or formal invitation, but Willoughby wanted particularly to show me privately. There's this little sweetest garden there in a sitting room just so, and a Cupid fountain.
No news of an engagement yet?
I cannot think why he uses her Christian name quite openly.
Such an extraordinary silence.
An establishment may not be within his power until he inherits.
He certainly lives expensively.
Oh, fashion and no fortune, as they say.
But no announcement of their attachment yet?
Why such secrecy? Why such secrecy?
Why such secrecy?
I have such a secret to tell you both about Marianne. I'm sure she'll be married to Willoughby very soon.
You've said that almost every day since they met, Margaret.
But indeed, now I'm sure they will be married very soon, for he has got a lock of her hair.
How do you know?
I know many secrets, Eleanor.
Margaret.
I saw him take it last night after tea when you and Mama went out the room. They were whispering together, and he took up a scissor and cut up a lock of her hair, and he kissed it, and he put it in his pocketbook, and she asked him to stay at the house with her. Alone. I'm sure that he must be visiting with her right now.
Margaret.
It is Mr. Willoughby Kirkhope outside. He did visit her.
Marianne.
Mr. Willoughby.
Good day.
Is anything amiss?
Yes, there has been a very heavy disappointment. I am afraid I am unable to picnic with you today.
Well, then perhaps tomorrow.
Mrs. Smith has commended her poor, dependent cousin to conduct some business for her in London right away. I have just received my marching orders and must leave immediately.
Her business will not keep you from us long, I hope.
You are very kind, but I do not think I can return to Devonshire soon. Mrs. Smith will not have me more than once a year.
And is Allenham the only house in the neighborhood in which you're welcome? For shame, Willoughby, do you need a formal invitation to visit us here?
You are too good. My engagements at present are such of nature. It is my folly to linger. I will not torment myself by remaining here any longer.
Margaret, will you please go and tell Betsy that Marianne won't be coming down for dinner?
But
please, dear. Do you think that they have quarreled?
Oh, Eleanor, why do you always love to think the worst?
I don't. But what else could have happened?
Why, it is perfectly obvious. I can account for everything.
Can you?
Yes. Mrs. Smith must have invented this business in London as an excuse to send Willoughby away. Word has finally reached her of the attachment between Willoughby and Marianne. She disapproves and strives to separate them because he is dependent on her. He dares not confess her yet that they are already engaged and must obey her wishes for a time, and that is why he cannot predict when he will return. Eleanor, what say you?
Nothing. You may be right, Mama.
Your countenance suggests that you think otherwise. What are your conjectures?
I do not mean to cast suspicion, but Mama, it may indeed be prudent to conceal their engagement from Mrs. Smith, but why do they conceal it from us?
His entire behavior to Marianne declares that he considers her as his future wife.
My doubts may soon be done away. If they write to each other, they are obviously engaged.
A mighty concession indeed. Ungracious girl, if you were to see them at the altar, would you then admit that they were going to be married?
Perhaps we should ask Marianne directly if she's engaged.
You may do as you like, but I would find it very ungenerous to ever force such a confidence. I would not ask that question for the world. Marianne shall tell me what she will, when she will, however she sees fit.
I have told Betsy she wants to know she should send Marianne's dinner up.
Let us practice your French, dear.
Nobody ever tells me anything.
Marianne, are you taking a walk? Shall I join you? Where would you like to go? On the downs. I'm sorry, Eleanor. I meant to go to the lanes. Marianne, please, for weeks you have avoided everybody. May I take the air with you once? The sky is very beautiful today. Oh, we never finished reading Marchmont, Marianne. Perhaps we can put it aside till Willoughby rejoins us. But it may be many months before that happens. Months? No, nor many weeks. Indeed? Marianne, have you and Willoughby been... Eleanor! Who is that? Is it Colonel Brandon? No! Is it Willoughby? No! Look! Hello! It is us, yes. Hello! Mr. Ferrars.
Miss Dashwood, Miss Marianne.
Edward! Oh, Edward, good God! What on earth could have taken you so long?
Yes, hello. Very pleased to see you both.
Indeed, this is almost the greatest happiness imaginable. Have you come directly from Norland?
No, I have been in Devonshire a fortnight and have now come purposefully to visit you.
Edward, you have been in the county for almost a fortnight without visiting us?
I've been visiting some friends near Plymouth.
Welcome. Walk back with us. Mama will be so happy to finally see you. Or perhaps I should just run ahead and tell her myself.
Marianne, wait. Perhaps we should all just walk together.
Sir John, Mrs. Jennings, may I present Mr. Edward Ferrars? Oh, Mr. Ferrars!
Mr. Ferrars.
What an unspeakable pleasure to meet you, Mr. Ferrars.
Would anyone care for some tea?
I would certainly.
Ferrars.
I never saw you wear a ring before, Edward. Is that new?
Yes. Well, no. Well, it is old, that is, but new to me. Recent. Have never worn it before. Yes.
Mr. Ferrars.
Long F, sir. Long F.
Mr. Ferrars. You must have dinner with us tomorrow night, for we shall be quite alone, and the night after you must absolutely dine with us again, for we shall be a large party.
And perhaps we may raise a dance in the next week. How long shall we have you in our corner of England, Mr. Ferrars? We are quite bereft of eligible young bachelors here. However long you remain a bachelor, that is.
Mother.
I'm afraid I'm only staying tonight, ma'am.
No.
A lot of riding for such a short visit.
Only for tonight, Edward?
Oh, I see. I suppose you only came for some particular errand.
Oh, I see.
I was in the county, ma'am.
Well, whatever the reason, we must have you stay longer now.
Yes, young man, do not be a ninny.
Stay.
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 Edward, really, you are more than welcome.
Stay.
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 I'm afraid I must attend my mother.
Truly, Mr. Ferrars, such a very short visit.
Why come at all?
Really, Edward? It's too ridiculous. You must stay.
I'm sorry beyond what I can say, but I must go to my mother.
Well, and what are Mrs. Ferrars' aims for you at present, Edward?
Much the same. I'm to rise high in the world, but I must have no profession. That would be too common. Given the choice, I should like to find employment in the church, but it is not smart enough for my family. And so my own nicety and the nicety of my relations turns me into what I am, an idle, helpless being.
Come, Edward, such melancholy. Your mother will give you in time the financial independence you are so anxious for. How much good may not a few months do?
I think that I may defy many months to produce any good to me. What is a man, if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed? A beast, no more. That's from Hamlet, Marianne, but perhaps you didn't recognize it because my delivery is so improved. Forgive me if I'm very saucy.
I love to be reminded of the past, Edward, and you will never offend me by talking of it.
And do you feel so strongly about Hamlet's beating heart as you once did?
At my time of life, opinions are fixed. It is not likely that I should now ever change them.
Marianne is as steadfast as ever.
She's only grown a little more grave.
Nay, Edward, you need not to reproach me. You are not too gay yourself.
No, I suppose not.
But worse, you are reserved.
Reserved?
Yes, very.
How do you mean?
Marianne thinks everybody reserved who is not quite as open as she is. And here we are at last.
Well, Edward, I suppose we may bid you adieu. Do you know when you may return?
I cannot say.
Please do come again, Edward. Soon, please.
Miss Dashwood.
Hello, Miss Dashwood.
Where is Miss Marianne? Has she run away because we are come?
She is out walking.
Well, lay that work aside for one moment, Lady Industry. I brought you some strangers, Miss Anne and Lucy Steele, who are to stay with us at the park. How do you like them?
Hush, they'll hear you.
I met them on a morning's excursion to Exeter and discovered them to be my relations. Yes, can you imagine? Naturally, we invited them to stay with us directly. I dare say you can see the resemblance.
They're the sweetest girls in the world. You must come for a visit tonight. You can't think how you will like them.
Oh,
Come.
What a lovely room this is. So very well appointed.
Indeed.
How do you like Devonshire, Miss Dashwood? I suppose you're very sorry to leave Sussex and that big fine house when your father died and you lost all your money.
We were very sad to leave Norland.
Excuse me.
And had you a great many smart beaux there? There may be a vast many smart beaux in Exeter, I'm sure, but Lord knows if I can tell what beaux there might be about Norland. Perhaps the Miss Dashwoods might find it dull here if they do not have so many as they used to have. But Perhaps you two do not care about the beaux and had us leave you without. For my part, I think they are vastly agreeable provided they dress smart and behave civil. I can't bear to see them dirty and nasty. Now, there's Mr. Rosa Exter, clerk to Mr. Simpson. If you do but meet him out of a morning, he is not fit to be seen. I suppose your brother was quite a beau, Miss Dashwood, before he married, as he was so rich and...
Anne!
Well, Sir John tells us Miss Marianne has a very special admirer who's very handsome. And I hope you will have as good luck yourself soon. But perhaps you have a gentleman friend already?
His name is Ferrars, but pray do not tell it, for it is a great secret.
Ferrars! Mr. Ferrars is the happy man? Your sister-in-law's brother, Miss Dashwood? Why, we know him very, very well.
Anne, we have met Mr. Ferrars once or twice at our uncle's, but we hardly know him well.
Well, I shall say no more. Not for all the money in the world. I do believe I shall see if Miss Marianne knows any areas. I'm passionately fond of an area.
Miss Dashwood, please pardon me, but I wonder if I might ask you something rather odd. Pray, are you closely acquainted with your sister-in-law's mother, Mrs. Ferrars?
No, I'm afraid not.
Truly? Oh, I suppose she might have visited Norland sometimes.
No, I've never met her.
You must think me very strange for inquiring about her. I wish I could tell you why I ask, but I do not wish you to think me impertinent. I could not bear to have you think me impertinent. I would rather anything in the world than to be thought impertinent by a person like you.
I assure you that...
And I do wish so much that I could tell you my reasons, and I would indeed be very glad of your advice in a trying matter, but I do not want to trouble you. I'm sorry that you do not happen to know Mrs. Ferrars.
I am sorry that I do not. But I confess I didn't know that you were at all connected with that family.
Forgive me. It was an odd question. Do not think of it anymore.
Tea.
Dearest Miss Dashwood, can I trust you?
Pardon?
Can you? Would you keep a very great and grave and important secret? If I unburden myself to you entirely, would you solemnly promise never, ever, ever to tell anyone what I will tell you now? Mrs. Ferrars indeed is nothing to me at present, but the time will come when we may be very intimately connected indeed.
Good heavens! Have you an understanding with Mr. Robert Ferrars?
No, I never met him in my life, but I am engaged to his eldest brother. I dare say, he never dropped the smallest hint of it to you or your family. It is a great secret, for I have no fortune, and we fear his mother will take away all his inheritance if he chooses to marry a girl with no money.
I beg your pardon, but there must be some mistake. We cannot mean the same Mr. Edward Ferrars.
I assure you, I'm not mistaken about the name of the man on whom all my happiness depends on. Mr. Edward Ferrars.
Mr. Edward Ferrars.
It can mean no other.
May I ask if your engagement is of long standing?
We've been engaged these 4 years.
4 years?
Yes, but we have known each other for far longer. He was a pupil for many years of my uncle, Mr. Pratt, who lives in Longstaple. He visited us there recently, in fact. Oh, I suppose just before he visited you here.
You are his friends in Plymouth?
I am. No. Did you think him sadly out of spirits? Poor Edward. It does break his heart terribly for us to be separated. I gave him a lock of my hair to set in a ring, and that was some comfort, he said, but not equal to us being together. Perhaps you noticed the ring when you saw him.
Lucy, what is that song the doctor was asking me to sing last Thursday? Pardon my interruption.
Miss Dashwood, I hope we can speak of this again. It is such a relief to confide in someone so much older and wiser. Until now, Anne is the only person I have been able to ask advice of. And I know my dear Edward cannot be angry at me for confiding in you. He has told me so much about you and your family, and I know that he looks upon you quite as his own sister. Might we see you in London this winter?
No.
I'm sorry for that. We could have spent many happy hours together. Anne and I are going in December to see some relations, but I'm really going to see my darling Edward. I will, of course, give him their very, very best.
My dear Miss Dashwoods, gather round, gather round. Or Miss Marianne, if you prefer, keep paddling away there, but do attend to me closely. I have a wonderful proposal for you, my girls. Every winter, you know, I am in the habit of removing myself to a nice little stomp in London, near Portman Square. But this year, I am entirely resolved that this go-round, you both must come with me to town as my guests and keep a stupid old woman hopping.
I do thank you, ma'am. It is a very kind offer, but I'm afraid that we cannot leave my mother.
Pooh, I am sure she will not object. On the contrary, she will think me very fit to procure you both a bevy of eligible young London bachelors.
Miss Marianne seems eager enough. Our Mr. Willoughby lives in town, does he not?
One or the other of you I must have. I cannot live poking around by myself. Come, Miss Marianne, let us strike hands upon the bargain, and if Miss Eleanor changes her mind by and by, why, so much the better.
I so sincerely thank you, ma'am. I must ask my mother's consent first, I suppose, but I assure you it would be almost the greatest happiness I could ever think of.
That certainly sounds promising.
We will consult with Mama, yes, but I think she will decide against it.
It is a wonderful plan.
Can't I go? May not I go?
Perhaps in a few years, my dear.
In a few years, I will be beyond all improvement.
Mama, I do not think this is prudent. Although Mrs. Jennings has a good heart, her protection cannot give us consequence in London, and it's just...
If Eleanor is frightened away by Mrs. Jennings, Mama, it does not prevent my accepting her invitation, and I...
What a sudden and miraculous display of enthusiasm for Mrs. Jennings!
I will have you both go. These objections are nonsensical. You will enjoy touring London, and if Eleanor would ever condescend to anticipate enjoyment, she might foresee having a very interesting time. John and Fanny always winter in town, and you shall have to visit them. And perhaps when doing so, you may encounter some other members of the Ferrars family.
Ferrars?
I like Edward Ferrars well enough, but that is scarcely a reason to go all the way to London.
Must you always be so cold?
Marianne!
Eleanor, please. Just don't you see that going to town may secure both of our happinesses forever? I cannot stand it, Eleanor. I must see Willoughby or I will go mad, please?
Please promise me that you'll behave yourself. Marianne, I'm writing home tomorrow.
I am not writing to my mother. Has any letter been delivered for me today?
No letter has been left but this.
For me?
No, ma'am, for my mistress.
You are expecting a letter then?
No.
You have no confidence in me, Marianne.
Nay, Eleanor, this reproach from you who confide in no one.
Me? Marianne, I again have nothing to tell.
Nor I. Our situations are then alike. Neither of us has anything to tell, you because you do not communicate, and I because I conceal nothing.
Marianne.
Eleanor! It is him! Oh! Oh! Oh.
Miss Dashwood, I am pleased to see you in London.
Oh, Colonel, I am monstrous glad to see you. Pardon me, but I have been on my feet all day. Oh, I brought 2 young ladies with me, you see. You see but one now, but there's another somewhere. Oh, and it is your friend, Miss Marianne. Oh, I don't know what you and Mr. Willoughby will do between you about her. It is a fine thing to be young and handsome. Or so I think. I never was handsome, but I was young once, or so I think. Oh, pardon me a moment. I've forgotten to speak to cook about dinner. One has always a world of little odd things to do when one has been away. And I've had old Cartwright to settle with. Lord, I have been as busy as a bee. Bzz, bzz, bzz.
Miss Dashwood, might I congratulate you on the acquisition of a brother?
What do you mean?
Your sister's engagement to Mr. Willoughby.
She is engaged to Mr. Willoughby. This is the first time I've heard of it.
Their marriage is universally talked of.
By whom?
By whom of which you know nothing, by others with whom you are most intimate. Is it true, Miss Dashwood?
Though they have never told me of their terms, of their mutual affection, I have no doubt. And I am not surprised to hear of their engagement.
To your sister, I wish all imaginable happiness. To Willoughby, that he may endeavor to deserve her.
Colonel, do you prefer boiled fowls or veal cutlets? Colonel? Honestly, that man. 3 weeks gone by and still no visit from Mr. Willoughby. It must be very teasing to you, Miss Marianne. But at the Fitzgerald's ball, there will be many pretty fellows to attend upon you. And I'm sure Mr. Willoughby will turn up sharpish when he hears how many gentlemen you dance with tonight.
Willoughby!
Miss Dashwood.
Willoughby, good God, will you not shake hands with me?
I do hope your mother as well.
Have you not received my letters? For heaven's sake, Willoughby, what is the matter?
I did receive the information about your arrival in town, which you were as good to send me. Please, excuse me.
Marianne! Pray, be composed and do not betray what you feel to everybody present.
Eleanor, go to him at this moment. Force him to come to me.
Marianne, no. With all of these people watching, not now, dearest, please.
Oh, Eleanor. I am unwell. I am very unwell.
My dear Miss Marianne, I have something from a certain special someone which I'm sure you will find to your liking. I never saw a young woman so desperately in love in my life. Pray, when are they to be married?
You don't really, ma'am, believe that my sister is engaged to Mr. Willoughby? I always thought you were only joking.
For shame, Miss Eleanor. How can you talk so? We all know that they were madly in love with each other from the first moment they met. Because you're so sly about it personally, you think nobody else has any sense. But I tell you, all society knows of it, from here to Devonshire and back again. I tell everybody of it myself.
Indeed, ma'am, you are mistaken. And you are doing a very unkind thing in spreading the report.
Yes, yes. You are a very clever and subtle creature, Miss Eleanor. Mum's the word until the banns are read, eh? I'm off to visit my Charlotte, but have asked Susan to lay out a nice breakfast for you two to stuff yourselves. Ta-ta!
My dear madam, I gather that something in my behavior last night did not meet with your approval. Although I am at a loss to how I offended you, allow me to be plain. I am sorry if you ever mistook my friendship for something more. But you must acknowledge that anything of that nature is and has been impossible, as my affections have long been engaged with another young lady, John Willoughby.
Eleanor, what shall I do? What shall I do?
Marianne, please, try to stay calm.
How can I be calm?
What good does it do to become hysterical?
Leave me if it upsets you so much.
Do not indulge in this display.
Leave me, hate me, forget me, but do not ask me not to feel.
Marianne, it might have been worse. Your engagement could have gone on much longer before he ended it.
What engagement?
You weren't engaged. But Marianne, you wrote to him.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
How do you do, my dear? Poor thing. She looks very bad. And no wonder. It is but too true. He is to be married very soon. Miss Taylor told me of it downstairs, and I almost sank on the spot. Well, said I, if this is true, he has used a young lady of my acquaintance abominably ill, and I wish with all of my soul his wife may plague his heart out. But he is not the only man in the world worth having, Miss Marianne. You will soon be beating them back with a stout stick. Yes, have your little cry out. Luckily, the Parrys and Sandersons are coming tonight, and that will amuse her.
I am sure Marianne will not leave her room today.
I cannot believe that a man should use a pretty girl so ill. But when there's plenty of money on one side and none on the other.
The lady, then, is very rich?
£50,000, my dear. The young Miss Grey. A stylish girl, they say, but not handsome. £50,000! And it won't come before it's wanted, for they say he is all to pieces. Well, 'tis a true saying about an ill wind, for it will be all the better for Colonel Brandon. How he'll chuckle over this news. They'll be married by midsummer. I shall spirit him up as soon as I can. Maybe he'll come tonight. One shoulder of mutton, you know, drives another down.
All she wants is gossip, and she only likes me because I supply her with it.
Marianne.
I do not want to talk.
I will leave you if you will promise to rest.
I recollected that I had some fine old Costanza wine in the house, so I brought a glass of it for your sister. My poor husband was very fond of it whenever he had a touch of his gout.
How good you are, ma'am.
Colonel Brandon, miss.
I am afraid Mrs. Jennings is away from home, Colonel.
And your sister?
Marianne is unwell.
Perhaps then, what I heard this morning, there may be more truth in it than I thought possible.
What did you hear?
Concerned a certain gentleman.
You mean Mr. Willoughby's sudden engagement to Miss Grey? Have you also heard that Miss Grey has £50,000?
How is your sister?
Her sufferings have been very severe.
Miss Dashwood, I may be able to offer some comfort. No, not comfort. But I may be able to relate some history about Mr. Willoughby that may bring some clarity.
Please, go on.
You may find me a very awkward narrator.
Please.
In my youth, I knew a lady who was very like your sister Marianne, both in person and in temperament. I loved her, and she loved me in return, but Eliza had no fortune, and I was a young man with no independence and no occupation. I was under my father's power. He forbade the match, of course. A marriage of that kind was impossible, unthinkable, he said. And though I protested violently, I am ashamed to say that he won his point in the last. Threatened with disinheritance and disownment, I faltered, and Eliza was sent away. At 17, I was shipped off to my regiment in the East Indies, and there lost contact with Eliza entirely. A man came along and treated her kindly for a time, and then another, then another. I returned to England a grown man, independent and determined to find her, but by the time I did, she was dying in the poorhouse, her infant by her side. You may have heard rumors about my award, Miss Jane Williams. She's Eliza's daughter, whom I swore to look after as my own. That was 15 years ago. Last February, Jane suddenly disappeared from her boarding school. For months, I could not find her. Finally, I received a letter on that evening I left Barton so suddenly. In it, she did not name the man who had seduced her. His luck, for I would have done him violence at the table, even as he basked in your sister's smiles.
Mr. Willoughby.
He left Jane in a situation of the utmost distress, with no home, no help, no friends. Ignorant of his whereabouts, she's 15 and now she's with child.
This is beyond everything.
When I came to you last week, I thought that all was settled between your sister and Mr. Willoughby. I did not know how I could stop the marriage without heaping scandal upon both her and my poor Jane.
Who knows what his designs on Marianne were?
I promise you, Miss Dashwood, if I did not know from my heart that this might eventually lessen Miss Marianne's regrets, I would never have burdened you with such troubling information. I'm sure I keep you from your sister.
Marianne, before I write to Mama, I have something I need to tell you.
I suppose you heard about Mr. Willoughby's very expeditious nuptials?
I heard that his creditors breathe much easier.
I heard that Miss Grey wore orange blossoms to their wedding. Orange blossoms at this time of year!
They say the younger Miss Dashwood is broken-hearted and very ill. They had been corresponding,
Indeed.
Oh, yes, she wrote to him openly.
Very forward of her.
No one to keep her in check?
Father is dead,
Well, what can you expect?
I heard that she went out riding with him alone.
I am not surprised.
I'm sure all the Dashwood girls run quite wild.
And no money to speak of.
Then what did she expect?
Poor girl.
Silly girl.
Very forward.
Very foolish.
What a waste.
And so you see that we never really knew Willoughby at all. Marianne.
I would sooner think myself deceived by all the world than by Willoughby.
He has practiced nothing but deceit from beginning to end.
I cannot explain his behavior towards that poor girl, but whatever his sins, I know that he loved me. He loves me. That much is true.
Did he tell you that he loved you?
Yes. No, never absolutely. It does not matter.
Of course it does. He is the worst kind of villain.
No, he isn't. Not at heart. You say that we never knew him, Eleanor, but I did. I knew him as I know myself. If he is wicked, then perhaps so am I. He and I are the same.
You are not being reasonable.
You do not understand.
Perhaps I don't. Marianne, how could you have written to him?
I felt myself to be as solemnly engaged to him as if the strictest legal covenant had bound us.
Obviously, he did not feel the same.
He did. Eleanor, I may have been cruelly used, but not by Willoughby.
Who else but Willoughby?
I do not know.
Well, whoever may have been your enemy, let them be cheated of their triumph by seeing you rise above these circumstances.
I care not who knows that I am wretched. It is easy for those who have no sorrow to talk of calmness and exertion.
Do you think I have no sorrow, Marianne? Can you believe me capable of being at ease when I see you in this state?
Forgive me. I know that you feel for me, and I'm very sorry to make you unhappy. But mine is a misery which nothing can ever do away. I want to go home.
My dear sisters, so delightful to see you in town. Fanny and I wanted to stop in on you earlier, of course, but you know we have been very busy visiting and being visited.
Visit.
Visit.
Pardon me.
Whatever is the matter with Marianne? She looks very unwell.
She has had a nervous complaint.
Oh, I'm sorry for that. At her time of life, anything of an illness destroys the bloom forever.
Too pale.
Too thin.
Too pale and thin.
She's not that thin.
Fanny used to say nearly better than you did, but the way she looks now, I doubt she'll catch a man worth more than 500 or 600 a year. Oh, you'll excuse me twittering about marriage like an old dowager, but we have been talking of nothing else in my household. It is finally time, for Edward to settle.
Is Mr. Ferrars going to be married?
It's not battened down entirely yet, but his mother has determined she will give him his independence just as soon as he marries the Honorable Miss Morton.
Lord Morton's daughter.
She comes with 30,000 pounds.
30,000 pounds?
And what does Mr. Ferrars think of the arrangement?
I do not know if his mother's told him yet. No doubt he will be delighted. It is an excellent match, but that's all to come. In the meantime, we wanted to invite you to a little dinner party. You must attend. Fanny is wild to see you.
A party?
Party!
A party.
Miss Steele!
Miss Dashwood, Miss Marianne!
Oh, look, Lucy, it's our particular friend.
How do you happen to be in this company?
I may as well ask you the same thing. I confess, I'm amazed to see you, as you told me, that you would not ever come to town at all, and yet here you are.
Why are you here?
Why, we two and your sister-in-law are the fastest of friends. Yes, isn't that funny? Last week, we were in the sweetest little milliner's shop on Bradley Street, and we fell to talking with a terribly elegant lady waiting there and chatting about her boy who was being quite a monkey with the hat. I thought the milliner should faint. And Lucy had such a way with children, and one thing led to another. And it turned out to be the elegant lady was Mrs. John Dashwood. And we have visited almost every day since then. And she invited us to the party. And look, here we are. Now, isn't that funny?
Oh, good. You have all discovered each other, I see. What a small world that you are all such friends already. Come, ladies, let me introduce you.
Miss Dashwood, pray for me. In a moment, I'm to meet the woman that is to be my mother.
Our host, Mrs. Ferrars. Oh, yes, ma'am. Mrs. Ferrars says that the Miss Steeles are exceedingly pretty.
Miss Dashwood, Robert Ferrars, I am told you reside in Devonshire in a cottage.
We do.
For my own part, I am excessively fond of a cottage. There's always so much elegance in a cottage. If I had any money to spare, I should build a cottage and have all my friends visit me in my cottage. I advise everybody I see to build a cottage. My intimate friend Lord Cortland of the Lancashire Cortlands came to me the other day and laid before me 3 architectural schemes. Which one should I build, Robbie? Said he. My dear Cortland, said I, throwing them all directly into the fire. Do not build any of these deplorable shacks, but by all means, build a cottage. A cottage, man, a cottage, a cottage, a cottage, and that was the end of that.
Indeed.
And you, Miss Steele, do you live in a cottage?
I do not.
More's the pity.
That is Edward's brother. They are very unlike. Miss Dashwood, I cannot thank you enough for your invitation to dine tonight. Anne and I are quite overwhelmed by your generosity. I only hope you do not intrude.
Oh, Miss Lucy, how could such a charming creature as you ever intrude? Indeed, Mother. Mother says how unusual it is nowadays to encounter young women as modest and respectful as Les Jolies, Miss Steeles. I assure you, my dear, young ladies of your sort are always welcome here.
Oh, Mrs. Ferrars, you are too kind. I could just stay here forever. Your home is so lovely. These sketches are so very well appointed. Did you draw them, Mrs. Dashwood?
These were done by Eleanor.
Do you know, we should ask Miss Morton to paint something for us. She does paint most delightfully.
Oh, beautifully indeed, but she does everything well.
Who is Miss Morton? Why are you talking about Miss Morton? Eleanor made these and they are beautiful.
Miss Morton is Lord Morton's daughter.
Dear Eleanor, don't mind them. Please don't let them make you unhappy.
Shall we go in for dinner?
My dearest friend, can you believe it?
What exactly?
Did you not see Mrs. Farrar's way of treating me yesterday? So exceedingly affable, so kind from the moment I was introduced. She really seemed to take a special fancy to me. Were you not quite struck with it?
She was certainly very civil to you.
Did you see nothing but civility?
If his family knew about your engagement, nothing could be more promising than their treatment of you. But as that is not the case...
Why in the world would they pretend to like me if they did not? Mrs. Ferrars is affability itself, and so is your sister-in-law. I think it will all work out splendidly, and all my fears were for nothing.
I suppose time will tell.
How did you never mention, Miss Dashwood, how exceedingly charming your sister-in-law is? She is generosity itself. She wrote Anne and I a little note this morning and invited us both to stay with her for a bit. Isn't that very delightful? Are you ill, Miss Dashwood? You seem rather low.
I never was in better health.
Really? You'd not look it. Oh, I'm so glad his mother loves me already. I would have given up all hope if she had treated me in a forbidding sort of way and made it clear that I was unwelcome. For when she does dislike people, I know it is most unshakable and violent.
Mr. Edward Ferrars, miss.
Mr. Ferrars!
Miss Marianne, Miss Steele.
Please do be seated.
Yes, I thank you, Miss Dashwood. I came to inquire after your mother.
She's very well, thank you.
Excellent. And, young Miss Margaret, your sister?
Very well, thank you.
Edward, I heard you announced.
Marianne, how do you do?
Oh, I am very unwell. But do not think of me, Edward. Eleanor is well, you see, and surely that is all that matters.
Does not London not agree with you?
Not at all. I expected to find much pleasure here, but the sight of you is the only comfort it has afforded thus far. We spent such a terrible, wretched day at Harley Street yesterday, Edward. I have so much to say to you about it, which cannot be said at the moment, but why weren't you there?
Oh, I'm afraid I was engaged elsewhere.
Engaged elsewhere when such friends were to be met?
Perhaps, Miss Marianne, you think that young men never keep any engagements at all.
Not so indeed. I'm sure he must have had something very important to do to keep him from us. Do you have some pressing previous obligation, Edward? I knew it. What else could have kept you away? Edward really has the most active conscience in the whole world, you know, and would only have disappointed us because he did not want to break his word to another. Indeed, he is the most fearful of failing expectations or causing pain to others of anybody I ever met. And he always tries to do the right thing, whether it makes him happy or not. Edward, it is so, and I will say it.
Please do excuse me. I have only come for a moment. I have an appointment to see a horse. To buy. I may buy a horse, if it is a good horse.
Going so soon? Again, Edward, this must not be.
I'm afraid I must also be on my way. If you are leaving, Mr. Ferrars, perhaps you would be so good as to escort me as far as the park.
Why, yes. Delighted. Miss Marianne. Miss Dashwood.
What could have brought her here? Could she not see that we wanted her gone? How teasing to Edward.
So, we are all his friends, and he has known Lucy the longest. I'm sure that he was happy to see her.
You know, Eleanor, I cannot bear when you say things that you know are not true.
Miss Dashwood, Miss Marianne, have you heard the news at your sister's house? A scandal, a real scandal.
I cannot think what is taking Lucy so long at her toilet this morning. She must fix a ribbon in her hair too, I suppose, after seeing mine.
Cette ribbon suits you marvelously, my dear. Très jolie. Very pretty.
Oh, now you are going to laugh at me too. But why shouldn't I wear blue ribbons? Blue is the doctor's favorite color. True, but that doesn't mean that I wear it just to please him.
You young ladies in your beaux. It is all so diverting.
Oh, la.
But you must not keep every heart for yourself, Miss Anne. You must leave some suitors for dear Miss Lucy.
Oh, Lucy gets more than enough attention, ma'am.
Pray tell.
Lucy has a beau herself, though not a soul knows of it but me. I have a vast deal I could say to you on that account, were I so free.
Now, Miss Anne, you know Miss Lucy and yourself are family to me, and I'm afraid we permit no secrets in this family. I will ask you again, Madame, who is the lucky gentleman and where is his lodging?
Oh, no, I mustn't tell, ma'am. If you aren't wearing that new spotted musk.
Oh, no, I shall not be put off so easily.
Lord, well, you are so fond of Lucy. I'm sure there will be no difficulty, but you mustn't tell her that I told you. She is engaged, ma'am.
Engaged?
To your brother, Edward.
Your sister-in-law threw them out of the house and fell into fits. And your brother was so frightened that he sent for Dr. Donovan. And Dr. Donovan found the house in an uproar. And now the story is all over town. Myself, I had no notion of people's making such a to-do about money and greatness. Miss Marianne, are you ill?
I think my sister wants rest, Mrs. Jennings. Please let me attend to her. Marianne, I knew.
Has Edward written to you?
I have known it these 4 months. Lucy told it to me herself and swore me to secrecy before I knew what I was promising.
How have you borne it?
What else was there to do?
For 4 months. And yet, you do love him?
Yes, but I do not love only him, and I was glad to spare my loved ones from my unhappiness.
How could Edward be engaged to that creature?
People make mistakes, Marianne. He was very young when he met Lucy, and confined as he was by his mother and upbringing, I am sure that she was very refreshing. She is lively and can make herself agreeable when she wishes. And if, when he grew older, he perhaps began to see something of her true nature, I am sure that he was too honorable to break off the engagement. Edward, as we have always said, has a most active conscience.
But his behavior towards you.
I must acquit Edward of all essential misconduct.
Eleanor.
He never promised me anything, Marianne. It's not his fault that we got carried away by our own conjecture.
I am sure that he feels something for you.
Even if that is true, there is nothing to be done about it. Edward will marry Lucy, and I truly wish him very happy.
If your way of thinking is so practical, I am not surprised that you are calm.
I understand. You do not suppose that I have ever felt much. For 4 months, Marianne, I have known of Edward's engagement. For 4 months, I have had to listen to Lucy's hopes and exaltations again and again. For 4 months, I have never been able to confide in anyone. I am to be divided from Edward forever. Nothing has ever proved him unworthy, and I believe now that perhaps he does feel something, as you say. In short, I have suffered all of the punishments of extreme attachment without enjoying any of its advantages. If you think me capable of ever feeling anything, Marianne, surely you can imagine that I have felt this loss very deeply. My current composure is the product of my constant and painful exertion to maintain control over myself. I have done my duty, but believe me, I have been very unhappy.
Eleanor, I do not know what to say.
Promise me something, Marianne.
Anything.
Promise never to speak about the matter with the least appearance of bitterness. Speak civilly and discreetly about it to everyone who may inquire. Yes, even Edward and Lucy.
But
please.
Yes, yes, of course. I promise.
You have heard, I suppose, of the very shocking discovery that took place under our roof yesterday.
Shocking!
Appalling.
Absurd.
Fanny says she shall never think well of anyone again after being so deceived. I now wish, said poor Fanny, that we had even asked your sisters to stay with us instead of the Steeles.
Why, thank you.
Generous.
Most generous.
We sent for Edward, but I am sorry to relate what happened. His mother explained that she would give him his independence if he would simply give up the girl and marry Mrs. Morton. Told him even that she would settle him on Norfolk Estate, which brings in a good 1,000 a year. But if he chose to marry Miss Steele, she would disown him entirely, and indeed, if he tried to find any profession at all, she would do everything she could to prevent him from advancing in it.
Gracious God.
Well, you may exclaim, Miss Marianne, at Mrs. Farrar's generosity. Edward said very little, but what he did say was unfeeling indeed to his mother and sister, who strove with all their might to help him see the error of his ways. He refused to give up his engagement. He will stand to it, though it ruins him.
Then he has acted like an honest man. I beg your pardon, Mr. Dashwood, but I have some concern in the business, for Lucy Steele is my relation.
I do not mean to speak disrespectfully of any connection of yours, madam, but in the present case, you know the match is impossible.
Well, sir, and how did it end?
What is to happen?
Did his mother cast him off?
Is he ruined entirely?
I'm sorry to say, ma'am, it is finished in a most unhappy rupture. Edward is dismissed forever from Mrs. Farrar's notice and will be disinherited. His mother has determined, with a very natural kind of spirit, to give it all to Robert immediately.
Thus ends Edward Ferrars, the great untrappable rich bachelor.
How does he propose to marry anyone now that he's penniless?
Impossible.
And Mr. Robert Ferrars is a very rich man.
A very rich man.
And very unmarried.
It is indeed a grave situation. I see the natural anxiety upon your faces, but do not worry. There is no material danger to Fanny's health, although she suffers severely, the angel.
This town gets worse every year, my dears. Bad behavior all around. Thank heavens we'll be back in Barton soon. We will only stop for a visit with my daughter Charlotte at Cleveland, and then we'll be home again as quick as you please.
Cleveland? No, I cannot go to Cleveland.
Oh, because Mr. Willoughby has property in the county. Indeed, they are almost neighbors. I think one can see his home from a hill on Charlotte's estate. Oh, I am sorry, but you will never see him, my dear. I have told Charlotte all about his wicked treatment of you, and her dear Mr. Palmer would shoot him like a pheasant on sight. You will be very safe, I assure you.
Ma'am, thank you. We are very happy to go with you. It is an excellent plan.
Eleanor, you cannot expect me to go.
Marianne, we will only be there a few days, and we shall remain in the house the entire time. I promise you, there is no chance that you will see him. We may even ask Colonel Brandon to escort us back home from there. Please, it is the quickest, most eligible manner in which to return. And you know we are both eager to be gone.
I would be honored to escort you whenever you wish to leave the Palmers. Miss Dashwood, I must speak to you about another matter. I have heard of the injustice your friend Mr. Ferrars has suffered, and I wondered if I might be of some use.
How so?
They say that Mr. Ferrars intends to enter the church. The living of Delaford is vacant and mine to appoint. Would you be willing to tell him that I would name him as a rector, if he thinks it worth his acceptance? I only wish it were more valuable, but it is enough for him to marry upon.
That is very generous, Colonel. But wouldn't you rather offer him the position yourself?
I do not know him well, Miss Dashwood. I've only met him 2 or 3 times. I should think, as you were his old friend, he would be more inclined to hear the happy news from you.
Miss Dashwood, I received a note from Mrs. Jennings that that you wish to speak to me.
Yes. Hello, yes. I have something of consequence to inform you of. I am charged with the most agreeable office. Our dearest friend, Colonel Brandon, has desired me to say that, understanding you mean to take orders, he has the great pleasure in offering you the living of Delaford. Allow me to congratulate you and join in his wish that it may allow you to establish all your views of domesticity.
Colonel Brandon?
Yes, Colonel Brandon has heard of your troubles and wishes to help in any way that he can, as do we all.
Colonel Brandon give me a living?
The unkindness of your family has made you astonished to find kindness anywhere?
No. I'm sure I owe this to you.
You are very much mistaken. I have had no hand in it. Not that I wouldn't have had a hand in it if I had had a hand to give in it.
Miss Dashwood, when I became engaged to Miss Steele, I was very young and quite stupid, really. Colonel Brandon lodges on, I think, St. James Street.
I believe so.
I must hurry away then to thank him.
May I give you my unceasing good wishes for your happiness?
And mine for yours.
And here we are, Miss Marianne Eleanor Colonel. May I introduce Charlotte, the prettiest of my daughters. Oh, Charlotte, you've grown so plump.
I am so stiff from the carriage, I may take a little walk around the grounds.
It is so late, and it looks as if it may rain. Wait only tomorrow, and I will walk with you.
It is not going to rain. I shall go mad if I do not walk, Eleanor. I will return soon.
At least take your shawl.
Willoughby!
A bilious complaint?
No, a fever, they say, and very serious.
Her father died of the same, you know.
That stock was never strong.
Dying of a broken heart.
Such a rapid decay.
They say the doctor has been there 4 times in 2 days, and the Palmers have removed themselves, lest it be contagious.
Molly has told cook that the doctor is very grave, and grows graver still.
Well, that's the sad end of the whole affair, I suppose. And her so young.
Poor Miss Dashwood.
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 Eleanor, is Mama coming?
Not yet. We will send for her, but it may take some time for her to get here.
She must not go by London. I will never see her if she goes by London.
Marianne?
Eleanor, please. I am hot. I'm too hot.
Doctor, she is not herself.
I will bleed her.
I shall hold the bowl.
Miss Dashwood, I would prefer if you would send a man in. I cannot have you fainting. Miss Dashwood, it might be best if your mother is sent for soon.
Ow! Ow! Ow!
Is she going to die?
I must dispatch a messenger to Barton for my mother. She must come as soon as possible.
With your leave, I will bring the message myself. It'll be faster, and I will bring her back with me directly.
That is not necessary, Colonel.
Miss Dashwood, give me something to do. I will return with your mother. Look for us before 10 o'clock.
Marianne, can you hear me? You cannot do this to me. I will not stand for it. You are being very ridiculous. I don't mean it. I'm sorry. I promise that if you get better, Marianne, I will never chide you again. Please, dearest, you cannot leave me. Do not leave me alone here. Please.
Miss Dashwood.
Your business cannot be with me, sir. The servants must have forgotten to tell you that Mr. Palmer was not at home.
Had they told me that Mr. Palmer and all his relations were at the devil, it would not have turned me from the door. How is your sister?
You have no right to ask. Mr. Willoughby.
Forgive me. I have been drinking.
What do you want?
I want to make things right if I can. I want something like forgiveness from Marianne.
Marianne, you should not be so familiar.
Is she in as much danger as they say? Is she dying? It is my fault. I know. Please, let me see her.
No.
I did not plan any of this. I never wanted to hurt anyone.
I must ask you to leave.
When I met your sister, I only wanted an idle dalliance, something to do in the country.
Mr. Willoughby.
I mean, you misunderstood me. I thought that it was only a harmless flirtation. And at first, I thought that surely Marianne also knew that it could not lead to anything. You must see that it is impossible for me to seriously pursue a girl with no fortune, no station, no, forgive me, no notable family. But quite against my intention, the part I played became the most pressing reality. I found myself terribly in love.
Did you?
I was gonna ask her to marry me.
And what precisely stopped you? You must think me very foolish indeed.
My luck went bad. Mrs. Smith had somehow been informed of a regrettable connection in my past.
I know your history, Mr. Willoughby.
I can guess who might have told you. Ask yourself if he truly is impartial. It was wrong, yes. I ought never have touched Jane, but do not suppose because I was a libertine, she was a saint.
Any weakness on her part is no excuse.
I assure you, Miss Dashwood, I have paid richly for my sins. Mrs. Smith pronounced me no gentleman, and I was summarily disinherited. I had many debts. Should I have gone to prison? I practically had no choice but to give up Marianne.
When you left Marianne that day, did you tell her that you would soon return?
I do not know what I told her. I was out of my head. I had to resolve to forget her entirely.
You did an excellent job. You ignored her letters, shunned her in public, exposed her to the worst kind of gossip and intrigue. Is this all evidence of the great love you have borne her?
Everything had been settled between Miss Gray and me.
Then you have made your choice, and now you will be held to it. Goodbye.
I must see her.
Seeing you will only endanger her recovery.
Recovery?
Her fever broke last night. She is no longer in material danger.
Miss Dashwood, you have been very cruel.
As have you.
You needn't punish me anymore, Miss Dashwood. I am unhappy enough. I assure you. My marriage alone is just a reward for my folly.
You should not speak of your wife in that way.
I shouldn't, should I? Yet, if ever on thine eyelid stood the tear that pitied had engendered, drop one here. This man was happy once, but conscience has her part and writes a doomsday sentence upon his heart. Hope, the poem, Cowper.
You really should leave.
I will, before I make you hate me entirely, Miss Dashwood. Will you someday repeat to your sister what I have been telling you? Tell her that my heart was never unfaithful to her. Marianne is most probably lost to me forever. But were I someday, by any blessed chance, free again,
Mr. Willoughby.
yes, well, goodbye, Miss Dashwood. God bless you.
Willoughby, I do pity you.
Colonel Brandon, I cannot thank you enough. You will never know what it meant to me.
If it is not an imposition, Colonel, would you stay? My voice is very weak and tired from the stress of yesterday's journey, but perhaps you could read to Marianne. We must make her confinement an interesting one.
Hear my soul speak. The very instant I saw you, did my heart fly to your service. And for your sake am I this patient logman. O heaven, O earth, bear witness to the sound and crown what I profess with kind event. If I speak true, I, beyond all limit of what else in the world do love, prize, honor you.
He loves her, of course.
Judged from his spirits, he does not think that there is much hope.
He thinks Marianne's affection and opinions too deeply rooted for any change, and even supposing her heart free again, does not believe that he could ever attach her.
No, Colonel, that Shakespeare writes in a rhythm which matches precisely the beats of the human heart. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. And he had been drinking?
Yes, but I think he meant it all. Marianne, may I ask?
Yes.
Do you perceive now that marriage to Willoughby would have condemned you to continual unhappiness? Can you imagine being bound forever to someone so endlessly selfish?
Do you think him selfish?
The whole of his behavior from the beginning to the end of the affair has been based on selfishness. His own pleasure is, in every particular, his ruling principle.
I suppose my happiness was never his object.
At present, he regrets marrying for money. And why does he regret it? Because it has not made him perfectly happy. But had he married you, he would have always been poor, suffering all of poverty's attendant evils. He has already proven that he is capable of treating you with great cruelty and indifference when it suits his purposes. In those circumstances, who knows how you might have fared?
Eleanor, I agree with you. Are you surprised?
A little.
I'm glad that we can speak about it. I'm relieved to hear that he was not always playing a part, not always deceiving me. It makes me feel not quite such a fool. I think I may even understand how he justified his actions entirely.
Do you still acquit him?
No, I assure you that I see everything as you desire me to. He was very wrong in what he did, and I never could have been happy with him after knowing how he treated that unfortunate girl. But I also feel sorry for him. Is that very foolish?
No, not at all.
I am grateful that you told me, Eleanor. I do not regret anything, I assure you, except my own behavior.
Do you compare your behavior with his?
No, I compare it with what it ought to have been. I compare it with yours.
Well, you are a goose.
We must turn back.
Are you tired?
No, the Colonel has promised to read The Tempest with me this evening, and I don't wish to be late. He's very good.
I suppose you know, ma'am, that Mr. Ferrars is married. Betsy, Miss Marianne is ill.
No, I'm fine.
Who told you that Mr. Ferrars is married, Thomas?
I just saw his new bride, Miss Steele, as was. She and Mr. Ferrars were stopping in a chaise outside the New London Inn. She said hello and sent her best to the family, especially Miss Eleanor, and I made free to wish her joy.
But she told you she was married, Thomas.
Yes, ma'am. She smiled and said she was Mrs. Ferrars now.
Was Mr. Ferrars with her?
I didn't see him, ma'am, but I imagine he is well enough, for she seemed vastly contented.
Margaret, go and pick us some pretty flowers, won't you?
Oh, yes. Mama, Colonel Brandon is at the gate.
For tea? Perhaps go and meet him, dearest. We just...
Mama, it isn't Colonel Brandon. It's Edward.
What?
It's Edward.
Good God, it is Edward.
I will be calm. I will be mistress of myself.
Sit.
Edward, I do wish you joy.
Ma'am.
I hope that you have left Mrs. Ferrars very well.
Rather well, I think. Yes.
Is Mrs. Ferrars at Longstaple?
No, my mother is in town.
I meant to inquire after Mrs. Edward Ferrars.
Oh, that's perhaps you mean Mrs. Robert Ferrars?
Mrs. Robert Ferrars?
Perhaps you do not know. You may not have heard that my brother is lately married to Miss Lucy Steele.
Your brother?
Yes. I had a letter from Miss Steele. Now Mrs. Steele. They struck up an acquaintance. My brother is very popular now, you see, because of his inheritance, and she set her cap at him, as I believe they say, and they were married last week.
Miss Dashwood, please allow me to tell you how ardently I am sensible of the impropriety. From the moment I first saw you. Oh, Eleanor, if I loved you any less, I might be able to talk about it more.
Mr. Ferrars, your behavior in this has been very wrong.
Very wrong, very blamable. Miss Eleanor, when I met Lucy Steele, I was a very foolish, idle, ignorant young man. I was not allowed to choose a profession, and I had nothing to do but fancy myself in love.
But your behavior to me.
I was simple enough to think that because my faith was promised to another, that there could be no danger in my being with you. And when I knew I was in love, I thought the danger is only my own. I'm doing no injury to anybody but myself.
Mr. Ferrars.
But won't you forgive me, darling? Dearest Eleanor, please, won't you be mine?
Edward,
Eleanor, may we come in?
Margaret!
Ow!
Eleanor. I know.